Hey everyone, I've been asked to start a series on Linux, and I guess that's what we're going to do. So, this is, at least right now, is going to cover using a distribution called Mint. If there is interest in the future, I can do some more. But let's start with Mint because Mint is a pretty easy one to get started with if you're new. And yeah, so before I get started, let me talk about what this is. So, Linux, for those of you that don't know, technically it is not an operating system, it is a kernel. The kernel is the part of the computer operating system that controls pretty much everything else. So, like, in Windows, it's called I believe it's called the Windows NT kernel. In Mac OS, it's called Darwin, and it's basically what controls everything that happens on your computer, basically. Now, Linux, being open source, means that basically anyone can take that kernel and build their own stuff on top of it. As opposed to Windows or Mac OS, which are made by proprietary, or they are proprietary and manufactured by different companies, and you can't really change them. With Linux, there are tons of different operating systems out there called distributions, and they can be extremely different. So the trick is trying to find one that works best. Now, the problem on top of that is if you're blind, that also adds some more complexity, in the same way that I don't recommend getting phones from any manufacturers other than Apple and Google, for the simple reason that with the iPhone and the Pixels, you know exactly what you're getting, and you won't be confused, or you won't have any accessibility problems, because some manufacturers' customizations aren't very accessible. So, Mint is based off of another distribution called Ubuntu, which is itself based off of it's based off of another one called Debian. Debian, from what I can tell, is the basis of tons of different distributions, and while it does support a 32-bit processors, that is probably not likely to last for too much longer, because I think the next release, which is coming next year, will drop that. Though, to be fair, if you're still using a computer that can't use a 64-bit processor, you should really get yourself a new computer, because those processors are very, very old. And yeah, they soon won't be able to run anything modern, I'm pretty sure, because once Debian drops support for 32-bit processors, I think that's going to mark the end for a lot of distributions that work on that particular architecture. Now, as for, let's see, the other thing that I want to talk about briefly before I actually get started is a graphical desktop environment. So there are tons of these. They are different. I believe they have different keyboard commands. Obviously, if you can see They appear differently. The one I recommend is Mate. It is not mate. I believe it's pronounced mate, which is I think it's also it's named after some kind of bush in somewhere in South America. That desktop environment is basically the older version of another desktop environment called GNOME, which is used in the default version of Ubuntu and a whole bunch of other things. There's a bunch of other ones. There's XFCE, LXDE. I don't know how accessible those are. I just stick to using Mate. Now, you can actually install a distribution and install different desktop environments on it, and then you can change between them. So like if you wanted to install Ubuntu and then install Mate on top of that, you could. Though there is actually a specific distribution called Ubuntu Mate. Now, I don't recommend using Ubuntu for a bunch of reasons. Canonical, which is the company behind it, they upgraded the installer, so it's using a different. It's using some different framework, I believe, which is not very accessible. And there's a bunch of other reasons, but let's just keep it at that as of right now. So, let me talk. Oh, and then I guess the last thing is the reader that you'll be using in any distribution is called Orca. That is used in the graphical environments. If you're using just a terminal, so you're accessing a system at just the command line, you have eSpeakUp and Fenrir. I'm not going to get into those unless there's enough interest, because that's more advanced, and the only distributions I know of, well, the only distribution that comes up talking like that, even at the console, is Debian, but installing that is a bit trickier, and I'd say you have to be even more comfortable with your computer and things like that. There's also a distribution called Arch, but I'm definitely not touching that because that is for advanced users. It's basically, from what I can tell, it's a version of Linux that's pretty pure, in the sense that you install it and you customize it exactly how you want it to behave. So if you want a whole bunch of programs on it, you can do that. If you want something that is extremely tiny with just the bare bones utilities that you want, you can do that. It is highly customizable. But I'm going to stick right now to Mint. So with that explanation out of the way, let's take a look at Mint. Now, you can go to linuxmint.com. So if I do that now,
run dialog, type the
we'll go to the run dialog and type
blank
www.linuxmint.com.
application home Linux Mint Mozilla Firefox link.
And you can read through all this stuff here. The current version of Mint, which is Mint 22. So if I jump down by heading,
Wilma heading level 6, heading level 2 Linux Mint 22. The latest version of the friendly operating system is here. Install it on your computer today.
Right. Mint is based off of the Ubuntu long-term support versions. So Ubuntu releases 2 versions per year, once in April and once again in October. Every 2 years, they have a long-term support release which will come out and be supported for 5 years. So the current version is 24, 2404, which obviously came out in April of 2024. Mint takes a bit longer to catch up, so that just came out at the end of July. The next long-term support release will be obviously in 2026, so that's when we can expect Mint 23 to come out. In between that, Mint has 3-point releases, so 22.1 will probably come out in December or January. 22.2 will come out in July or August or June maybe, and 22.3 will come out probably December, January of 2026. So there's about a 6-month gap between minor point releases. I think they time those to align with Ubuntu versions. But the thing to know about that is during a particular release cycle, you'll have tons of packages and programs that are stuck on outdated versions. So you may have to wait 2 years to get new versions of programs like Orca. And there's my phone, sorry. So let me go ahead and show you how you would download this. So I'm going to jump to the top of the page.
Link email, link chat room, link Facebook, link GuideThub, link Twitter, link Mastodon, www. Home visit, download collapsed, submenu link.
Okay.
Expanded.
If I click on this.
Project collapsed, download expanded submenu link.
Okay, this is not working, so I have to route the mouse here.
Download.
With NVDA Shift M. If you're using it in laptop layout, and then caps lock and the left bracket to do a click.
Left click, collapsed.
Now if I jump by link.
Linux Mint 22 recommended visited link. LMD6 link. All versions link.
Okay.
Linux Mint 22 recommended visited link.
I will report that on GitHub because you should not have to click the mouse like that. So Mint is based on Ubuntu. They also have LMDE, which is Linux Mint Debian Edition. And as you can probably tell, that is based off of Debian. I think they're doing that so that if Ubuntu and Canonical go away, Mint can still continue using Debian, which has been around for a very, very long time and is probably not likely to go anywhere anytime soon. I don't know how to use LMDE. I think it is using the Cinnamon desktop. And again, I don't know how accessible that is. So let's click on
Linux Mint 22 recommended visited.
Mint
Download
22.
Linux Mint 22. Linux. Check out the doc. Heading left. Follow the guide to learn how to download and install Linux Mint. Linux Mint 22 Wilma heading level 1.
All right, so I'm going to go down here.
Heading level 3 ready to download. Linux Mint is available in different flavors. Choose for more. Linux Mint is available in different flavors. Choose an edition below. For more information, read the installation instructions. Link button installation instructions. Link edition it equals 316. Sleek, modern. Heading level 2 Cinnamon edition. Sleek, modern, innovative. Heading level 2 Cinnamon edition. The most popular version of Linux Mint is the Cinnamon edition. Cinnamon is primarily developed for and by Linux Mint. It is slick, beautiful, and full of new features.
Yeah, that's great, but I don't think it's very accessible.
Link download. Link new features. Link release notes. Light, simple, efficient. Heading level 2 SFS edition.
Now, that is...
X, F, C, E.
It's not going to pronounce it right if it just reads it.
SFS is a lightweight desktop mate edition heading level 2.
So I'm going to go down here to Mate. It is not mate, but we will forgive the text-to-speech engine, and I'll just navigate by link.
Download visited link.
And we'll click on download.
Linux Mint 22 Wilma. Linux Mint doc. Check out the doc. Linux Mint 22 Wilma heading. Mate edition heading level 2.
Now if I jump by links here.
Mate link. Installation guide link. Release announcement link. Release notes visited link. 64-bit link. SHA-256 sum.tx. SHA-250. Verify button link. 64-bit link. Download from one of the mirrors below. Link 64. Heading. Link button verify. Link button. Buttons. Download the ISO image. Right click. Greater save link has.
Okay, so there's a table here, so if I press T.
Table with 142 rows.
There's different places you can download depending on where you are in the world. You'd probably want to choose the one that's closest to you.
SIG link. Layer online link. Manitoba Unix user group link. Canada. Link University of Waterloo Computer Science Club. USA. Visited link advancedosters.com. USA. Link Clarkson University. So
like I'm in the USA, I would choose any of these links here. So Clarkson, advancedhosters.com.
Link Clarkson, USA. Link udt.biz. USA. Link Fremont Cabal Internet Exchange.
And you click on that, it will download an ISO file. It's about 2.8 gigabytes, so depending on your connection speed, it might take a while. And yeah, so I already have it downloaded, so I'm going to close this page.
Audacity, track.
And let's actually get into the process of installing it. I'm going to install this into a VM for the basic reason that, well, it's good for demonstration purposes, and there's also right now no way, aside from using the terminal, to configure a Wi-Fi connection because the graphical menus aren't accessible. I reported this on GitHub, so hopefully we'll get a fix in Mint 22.1 or at some point during the 22 release. I think it would help if they would upgrade. They are not using the latest version of Mate, which is a shame. But let's go ahead now.
Folder VLC VMware Workstation Pro.
And let's open VMware.
VMware Workstation. Property page. There are no open virtual machines. Select an item in the library.
Now, I already have...
Power on this virtual tree view. Windows 10. Windows 11. Insider not selected.
I have some things here. Let's not concern ourselves with those. I'm going to hit Control-N.
New virtual machine wizard dialog. Dialog. Welcome to the new virtual. Typical. Recommended. Radio button focus checked.
Okay, just making sure I'm on typical by pressing NVDA key and tab.
Help button. Next. Great. Unavailable.
Next.
Dialog install from. I will install the operating system later. Radio button checked.
Yeah, I'll do that later.
Help but less next pressed. Unavailable. Dialog. Guest operating system grouping. Linux radio button checked.
Okay, that's already chosen for me. I'll hit tab.
Version grouping. Version combo box Ubuntu 64-bit collapsed.
That's fine.
Help button left next. Unavailable. Dialog. Virtual machine name. Edit selected Ubuntu 64-bit.
Let's call it
Selection.
Linux Mint.
L. Linux Mint.
There we go.
Location. Edit selected C. User squad documents virtual machines Linux Mint.
That's fine.
Browse. Less back. Next greater
I
button.
don't want to browse for anything.
Unavailable. Property page. The virtual machine's hard disk is stored. Split virtual disk into multiple files. Store virtual disk has a single file. Radio button checked.
We want to store it as a single file.
Maximum disk size.
And let's give it 128 gigabytes.
128. Store help button. Less back. Next greater button. Unavailable. Dialog. The virtual machine will be created with the following settings. Customize hardware.
Now, I'm not going to do that.
Let finish.
From here, I'll hit
Pressed.
finish.
Windows 10. VMware Workstation.
No, we don't want Windows 10.
Tree view. Linux Mint.
Okay, that's already highlighted, so I'm going to tab to edit.
Edit virtual machine settings button. Virtual machine settings dialog. Property page. Maximum recommended memory.
Okay, let's go down now.
Processors. 2.
I'm going to set this to 2 processor cores and 1 virtual processor. So
Property
tab
page.
twice.
Number of cores per processor. Combo box collapsed. Edit selected 1.
Okay, we want
2. List.
2.
Processor.
It jumps me back to the processor list. I'll just press tab.
Property. Number of cores per processor. Combo box collapsed. Edit selected 2.
Okay, that's good. And I will shift tab.
Number of processors. Combo box collapsed. Edit selected 2.
I only want one processor.
1.
So I'll go up arrow. And now I will shift. Well, actually, let me see here.
Number of
what
core.
else can we do in here?
Virtualization engine grouping. Virtualize Intel VTX/EPT or AMDV/RVI checkbox not checked.
Okay, I don't want to virtualize anything inside this VM, so I'm just going to leave that off.
Virtualize CPU performance counters checkbox not checked.
Don't need that.
Virtualize IO memory management unit checkbox not checked.
Don't need that.
Add. Okay, can't help but tab control property list process hard disk process memory 4 gigabytes.
Let's go up to memory.
Property page maximum recommended memory MB slider 67 memory
And
size.
I'll shift tab. Or no, let me shift tab because I went too far.
Memory for this virtual machine. Edit selected 4096.
Let's give it 8 gigs of RAM.
Selection
192.
8192.
That's measured in megabytes. So 1 gigabyte is technically 1024 megabytes. So if you multiply that by 8, that's what you get.
List memory 4 gigabytes.
And it's going to not show me until I go back down.
Memory 8 gigabytes. Processors 2. Hard disk FCSI 128 gigabytes.
That's fine. We'll just leave it as it is.
CD/DVD SATA auto detect.
Okay, I'll tab to browse.
Connection group combo box advanced. Connect use physical drive. Radio button checked.
Or actually, no, I have to change it. I don't have a drive in this computer.
Use ISO image file.
I don't have a disk drive in a lot of the modern computers I have. I have a few computers that still use them, but this computer does not have a disk drive.
Browse. Pressed. Browse for ISO.
And for all you wondering, do not use your disk drive as a coffee cup holder. That is a very bad idea.
Linux mint.rest.lck not.
Alright, so I'm going to shift tab here.
Tree view.
And we're going to browse to downloads.
Start of quick access. Downloads. Pinned.
Press enter and then tab.
Items view list. Last week grouping expanded. Selected.
And if I hit press NVDA tab.
Linux Mint 22 made 64-bit. ISO list item focused selected.
Yeah, I downloaded this last week. I was going to record, but it was too loud and noisy, so... But that's okay.
Virtual machine settings dialog.
All right, so now we've chosen that.
Use ISO device list. CD/DVD. CD/USB controller. Present.
Let's change a few things in here.
Connect. Show all USB input device. USB compatibility. Combo box USB 2.0 collapsed.
That is no good. We want USB 3.
USB 3.1.
Or 3.1.
Show all USB input devices checkbox not checked.
If you wanted to show input devices, you could do things like that. And then say if you had your keyboard, you could connect your keyboard to the VM so that it would be controlled by the VM exclusively.
Share Bluetooth devices with a virtual machine checkbox checked. Not checked.
I do not want to do that.
Add. Remove. Okay. Can't help. Tab control. Hardware tab selected.
And,
list. Connection. List. Sound card. Auto detect. Display. Auto.
Sound card display.
Tab options tab selected.
Let's look in options here.
Property page. List. General. Linux Mint. Power.
Power.
Shared folders. Snapshots. Auto protect, guest isolation, access control, VMware tools, VNC Connect, Unity, appliance view, autologen, advanced, default/default.
Auto login. Do I want to change anything here in advanced?
Property page, input grabbed, combo box default collapsed, input ungrabbed, combo box default collapsed, normal, low. No, default.
I'm not sure what these do.
Settings, grouping, gather debugging information, disable memory page trimming checkbox not log virtual machine, enable template mode, firmware type grouping changing firmware might cause the installed guest operating system to become unbootable, BIOS radio button checked.
Now by default it chooses BIOS. We could use UEFI because Mint does support that. But you know what, I think we're good using legacy BIOS because it doesn't really matter. This is, by the way, a good time to mention that pretty much any distribution of Linux will run on a modern 64-bit processor. So this is a great way to keep older computers going with modern and up-to-date software. So if you have like a Core 2 Duo or Quad or something pretty old, from, I'd say, probably starting late 2006 onwards, this will probably run just fine. Which is great because Windows 11 officially is going to make a lot of computers e-waste, which is quite unfortunate.
File locations grouping.
So I could change this here. I'm not going to do that though, because I think this will be just fine running in BIOS mode. There's not really a need for UEFI.
Log. OK button. Pressed.
So let's hit OK.
Device. Edit. Power. Tree view. Linux Mint. Property
And
page. Property page. Edit virtual. Power on this virtual tree view.
wait, why is it doing that?
Property page. Linux Mint author. Version. State. Powered off snapshot.
Okay, it's reading all this random stuff if you hit tab from the list of VMs. If I check my current focus here,
Property page focused Linux Mint auth. Edit virtual machine settings
or
button.
no, I have to tab and then
Power
shift
on this
tab.
virtual machine button. Pane.
Let's boot it up, and I'll hit Control G. And at this point, we are waiting for it to boot. Actually, I can use OCR, so if I hit Control Alt and then NVDA R,
Recognizing.
we'll go to the bottom with Control End.
Linux Mint. Windows IO. Home. 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 Windows IO. Linux Mint. Linux Mint.
And I have automatic OCR refresh enabled in
Identifying.
In-
CD1 SF11 SSCB0S.
NVDA preferences, so it
Home.
will
Windows
tell me what's going on here.
Start. Ing. Start. Ing. Start. Ing. Start. Ing. Dot service. Linux Mint. Windows IO. Linux Mint.
Just wait here. It's gonna boot, hopefully, and when it boots, we can turn on Orca and either test the distribution in a live environment or install it. The nice thing is you can test.
Install Linux Mint.
Oh, okay. I think we're doing stuff now. Nice thing is you can test the distribution before you install it to make sure that things are working on your hardware. Usually with Linux, things just work. Not all the time, but usually. So if you wanted to put this on a real computer, if you go back and look at my tutorial on installing Windows, you could download the ISO, use Rufus to flash it to a drive, and then you can boot from that drive on your computer and go from there. So let's see here.
Install Linux Mint. Linux Mint. Windows IO. Pane.
Let me hit Control G here and then hit Alt Windows S.
Screen reader on.
Here we go. Now I'll hit Control Alt D
Left key desktop. Icon view.
and put me on the desktop.
Install
down now.
Linux Mint desktop entry.
We have an install icon. I could also choose to use the system as is, but I'm not going to do that yet because we'll get into that in part 2. So let's go ahead and press enter on install. And I think we're having some audio issues. This is a problem with VMware. If I alt tab here,
Let tab install tray continue push button. Language selector. Table with 80 rows 1 column. English.
now it is using eSpeak, but we'll live with that for now.
Quit push button. Continue push button.
I'll hit continue.
Return. Table with 99 rows 1 column. English US.
Now there are keyboard commands to read the window, but I'll try not to use those too much. So the first thing was choosing the language, I believe. This is the keyboard layout.
Tab. Text. Type here to test your keyboard. Table with 99 rows 1 column. English US. Table with 29 rows 1 column. English US.
Wait, I think that's the keyboard. So let me use Orca object navigation. I'm going to hold down insert and control and go to the left with the left arrow. Oh, why is the audio doing this?
No previous.
Maybe this isn't going to work.
No previous. Tab. Text. Type here to test your keyboard. Detect keyboard layout push button. Quit push button. Back push
Well,
button.
maybe this isn't going to work in VMware too well.
Continue push button.
Basically, though, it's asking for your, I believe, your language region and keyboard settings. I'm just going to leave it all set to United States because that's where I am. I think the audio cuts out if I don't.
Multimedia codecs checkbox not checked.
Okay.
Quit push button. Back push button. Continue push button. Install multimedia codecs checkbox not checked.
If you're connected to the internet, which you will be if you're using an Ethernet cable, or in this case, the network adapter is treated the same way in this VM. You can check this box to install multimedia codecs. I recommend doing this.
Space. Checked. Quit push button. Back push. Continue push button. Space.
And let's see what we get here. Now, usually it should just read things to you, but if it doesn't, just press tab.
Install multimedia codecs. Quit push button. Install quit push button. Install multimedia codecs checkbox checked.
Okay,
Install. Erase disk and install Linux Mint. Selected radio button.
Yeah, so right now, since there's nothing on this computer, you can just choose to erase and install. If I down arrow.
Something else. Selected radio button.
Or go back up.
Erase disk and install Linux Mint. Selected radio button.
If you had Windows installed or something, there would be another option here that would say install alongside Windows. I don't recommend that, especially if you're not comfortable. If you're installing this on a computer, I highly recommend that you erase the disk and install this as the only operating system. So you'd probably only want to do that if you have a computer that you don't mind erasing and testing this on.
Push button. Quit push button. Advanced features. Push button.
We're not going to worry about advanced features.
Quit push button. Back push button. Install now push button.
Hit install now.
Space. Write the changes to disks. Dialog. If you continue, the changes listed below will be written to the disks. Otherwise, you will be able to make further changes manually. The partition tables of the following devices are changed. SCSI 33000 SDA. The following partitions are going to be formatted. Partition #2 of SCSI 3300. Continue push button.
So it's just asking if you're sure that you want to do these. I'm going to hit continue.
Go back push button.
Or you hit go back.
Continue push button.
And I have to apologize for the audio problems. That is VMware. I'm not sure what's up with their audio.
Space. Install frame. 100%. No.
Now, okay, that was supposed to say panel. This is where things get interesting. It doesn't tell you, but if you tab around here.
Text. Select.
Wait, let me try that again.
Panel. Continue push panel.
Okay, panel, I don't know why that's just blank. There's probably something there.
Text. Chicago selected.
Chicago, that is your time zone. In my case, that is correct. That's in my time zone. I don't know if this is accessible to change it, so ideally you should be connected to the internet. If you want to use Wi-Fi, I think there's probably a terminal command, or you could get someone to help you connect to it using the GUI. I really hope this is fixed because this is absurd that we can't do that. But the problem with Linux, of course, is Linux desktop usage is already pretty low in the mainstream world. So when you add blind people to it, and technically inclined blind people like me, you have problems because you're basically creating a minority within a minority within a minority. Orca is not at the same level that something like NVDA is, just because of the simple fact that, like it or not, it's not very popular. Microsoft has basically dominated the computer industry for a very long time, and that does not seem likely to change. So Orca, unfortunately, as well, I believe, is only being maintained by a single person. So it definitely doesn't have the same community backing as something like NVDA does. Now if I tab,
Acted.
Yeah, you know, I think what I'll have to do in part 2 is connect a USB device to the VM, because this is pretty bad.
Back push to text.
Okay, Chicago is what I want.
Back push continue push space.
Let continue.
Your name. Text. 0%.
This wants my name. I'll type my name.
Let's see. HRISTOPHER space RIGHT. The name it uses when it talks to other computers. Your computer's name. Text. Christopher Virtual Machine selected.
This is the host name. This is basically the name that will show up
19%.
on your network. I'm just going to type
Lem select
mint
INT.
VM.
Left VM. Pick a username. Text. Christopher selected.
We'll just use Chris,
select
CHRIS. This is the name of the user that you'll log into. If you're using SSH to control this from a different computer, this is what you would type in
31%.
as the name.
Choose a password. Password text.
Type my password.
Black.
It just says black. I assume to indicate that the characters are hidden as you type them.
Confirm your password.
I'll tab and type it again. Make sure it's correct. Now if you tab,
require my password to log in. Selected radio button.
I highly recommend that you
46%.
keep this set to this option so that you'll have to type your password when you log in. If you don't want to do that, you can down arrow or up arrow.
Log in automatically. Selected radio button.
This could be
55%.
useful if you're trying to configure this for someone that doesn't want password authentication to log in. Again, I don't recommend that unless
59%.
the computer is not in a public environment or there's nothing private on the computer that you'd want to protect anyway.
Require my password to log in. Selected radio button.
You will
62%.
You will still need your password to perform tasks that require system privileges.
64%.
So it's very similar to typing your password in Mac OS when you want to do things like install programs or responding yes to
68%.
user account control prompts in Windows. Now the numbers you're hearing is a progress bar that is running. I believe this is installing.
Encrypt my home folder checkbox not checked.
While I'm doing this.
Continue push
I don't
button.
want to encrypt anything. I'll hit continue.
Space.
And at this point, the installation is progressing. Orca doesn't really talk to you, and you can't really read the screen, I think,
71%.
because it's graphical. If I go back to my host here
Left control.
with Control Alt and hit Windows R,
Recognizing result document. Install around Linux. Welcome to Linux Mint. Welcome and thank you for choosing Linux Mint. This slideshow will show you around while the system is being installed on your computer. Install as super user. Install as super user.
the reason it's saying install as super user is because the installer is running as root, I believe.
Install around while Linux Mint. This slideshow will show you around while the system is being.
So if you have vision, you can see there's like a bunch of stuff that it shows you. It tells you about different programs, how to
Browse the web. Fast and safe on the web with Mozilla Firefox. Watch your favorite shows on Netflix and YouTube. Featured software and services. Firefox, Netflix, YouTube. Install as super user
Right,
in
so-
Netflix. See https://www. See Netflix.
All right, so OCR is not perfect, as you can tell.
Pain.
I'm just going to let this run here. I'm going to pause the recording
79%.
because this will take a few minutes, and then I'll come back once it's done and show you what that process is like.
Audacity.
So I'll be right back. Okay,
Recording.
let's see if I can get it to talk to me.
Installation complete. Dialog installation has finished. You can continue testing Linux Mint now, but until you restart the computer, any changes you make or documents you save will not be preserved. Restart now push button.
Okay, so I wanted to get you to hear that, and I'm glad that I did that in time. So it will tell you that when it's done, so you can either use OCR or listen to Orca. It will read the percentages to you until it's done, and then you'll get that dialog, and
Linux Mint.
it should read that to you. Also, I have put this VM into full screen, and to do that, you hit Control Alt Enter. So now it should be taking up the entire screen. Let's hit Control G.
Continue testing push button.
If you tab here, you can restart now or continue testing. I'm going to actually
Restart now push button.
continue testing real quick.
Continue test return.
Because this... What happened to Orca? Oh dear. Let's hit Alt Windows S. Now in Linux land, the Windows key is called the super key. Don't ask me why. That's what they call it. Oh, I thought I could. I thought I could turn on Orca. Let's use OCR. See what's going on.
Recognizing ZFS. Disabling lock debugging due to kernel change. ZF SPL. Linux. Windows IO. 0K. Edit. VU. Tabs. Pane.
Wait.
Recognize. Linux. Windows IO. Tabs. VU. Edit. Mint VM. Mint VM. Password. Christopher Wright. Pane.
Well, I told it I wanted to continue testing, and apparently it still restarted. See if we can get Orca to come up here.
Screen reader on. Login screen frame. Enter password for Christopher Wright. Password text. Bullet.
I told it I wanted to continue testing, but it apparently chose to restart. So I'm going to type my password, and we'll log into the system for the first time. And I may have to turn on Orca again. Let's hit Alt Super S.
Screen reader on. Welcome frame. List with 5 items. Welcome.
This is a welcome page. I don't think it's very accessible with Orca. I mean, you might be able to use Object Nav.
No previous.
My Object Nav commands are not working properly in this VM. We're just going to Shift Tab here.
Show this dialog. Let's go. Show this dialog at startup. Checkbox checked. Let's go. Show this dialog space. Not checked.
I'm going to ignore this.
Let's go. List with 5 items. First document help.
We're just going to close it
F4.
with Alt F4 and Control Alt D.
Left the desktop. Icon view 0 items.
And we're on the desktop and it's blank. So at this point, the OS has been installed. I am going to shut it down. So let's hit Alt F1 to bring up the menu.
Left menu.
Up arrow.
Shut down. Shut down push button.
I'll hit shut down. And it should turn off. Now at this point, there's a lot of things that you could do. I think what I'll do to end this particular demonstration is
Start window. Linux Mint.
okay, why is it not?
Pane focused.
Why is it not
Audacity.
doing anything?
Linux Mint. VMware Workstation. Pane.
Wait, is it still shutting down?
Recognize primary IP address. Hardware configuration. State. Powered off. Pane.
It's powered off.
Recording.
Okay, I'm still recording.
Pane.
Why is it not showing me the controls? Control Alt Enter.
Linux Mint. VMware Workstation. Pane.
Okay, I don't know why it's doing that.
Toolbar. File. Edit. View. VM. Context. Power submenu. Startup guest control plus B.
Okay, why am I not getting the library view?
Power submenu.
Actually, you know what I can do though here real quick?
Remove. Pause. Send control. Grab input. SSH. Snapshot submenu. Take snapshot.
Let's take a snapshot.
Linux Mint. Take snapshot dialog. Taking a snapshot lets you preserve description. Name. Edit selected snapshot 1.
We'll call this initial install.
Install. Initial. Description.
This is an initial.
Initial. L blank.
Let's see.
Blank.
Let's try it. This is Linux Mint after a fresh installation.
Take snapshot button. Linux Mint. VMware Workstation. Toolbar. File.
Okay. We'll hit take
Pane.
snapshot. Not sure why it's not letting me view anything here. I may have to close VMware and open it again.
File submenu. Audacity.
Press escape there.
Recording. Disk.
Yeah, so just more problems that you have when you're blind. There are things that don't work as you would expect them to. Anyway, this is going to do it for part 1. Join me again in part 2, where I'll take a look at using Mate. We'll take a look at some of the preferences in Orca, as well as how to install programs and configure things and things like that. So if you guys have any questions, comments, let me know. But until next time, take care.